welcome to another Dark Woods Paranormal episode. Tonight feels a little different. It's December. The year's winding down, and there's something about this time of year that makes the dark feel a little closer. Not heavier, just more present. The lights feel dimmer, the air feels thicker. In history, especially dark history, has a way of whispering louder when winter sets in. Now, if you ever spent time in Milwaukee, you know it's a city with layers, beautiful layers, historic layers, and beneath those, some very uncomfortable truths. It's a city where elegance and shadow exist side by side, where old bricks buildings remember things, where footsteps echo a little longer than they usually should. A few places embody this balance better than Shaker's Cigar Bar. Shaker's isn't just a bar, it's an experience. It's a place where stories linger in the walls, where history doesn't just politely stay in the past, and where, if you're paying attention, the atmosphere itself feels alive. It's refined, it's historic. And yes, there's something undeniably unsettling about it as well. Which brings us perfectly to our guest tonight. Our guest this evening isn't someone who stumbled into the dark by accident. She's someone who studied it. She's a tour guide with Cannibal City Tours here in Milwaukee, guiding people through one of the most disturbing chapters of American criminal history, Jeffrey Dahmer. But what makes that important isn't that she doesn't approach it from a fascinating alone segment. She comes with a background in criminal justice. She understands the why, not just the what, the psychology, the patterns, the warning signs. And when you spend enough time studying a city's darkest moments, something changes for you. You stop.
In Milwaukee's historic Walker's Point,
Well,
there's a place where flavor, history, and a touch of the supernatural all share the same dimly lit room. Welcome to Shaker's Cigar Bar, the New Orleans inspired restaurant and lounge known for its high end cuisine and premium cigars, an atmosphere thick with stories from another time. Here, every dish carries the signature Cajun warmth, every cocktail is crafted with intention, and every corner of the building seems to hold a whisper from the past. Settle into the glow of the bar with a handcrafted old fashioned. Choose from a curated section of cigars and let the room wrap around you like a memory. When the meal is done, take a moment to explore. Shaker's famous ghost tours walk you through the shadows, uncovering the history of the spirits that give this place its unmistakable edge. It's dinner, it's atmosphere, and it's a brush with the unexplained, all under one roof. Shaker's Cigar Bar, where great food, great cigars, and great spirits come together in unforgettable ways. Tell Bob Darkwood's Paranormal sent you.
And that's Shaker's Cigar Bar. That's fascinating. That's great. That's better than what I could have done. And beyond the tours, beyond the history, she also works at Shaker's Cigar Bar as well, a place where known for activity def- that defines explanation, which raises a fair question. When you work inside a building like that, like the building we just saw, when you're surrounded by stories, spirits, and shadows on a nightly basis, do you eventually experience something yourself? Or does something experience you? Now, there's one more layer tonight because our guest doesn't just study the dark, she embraces it. She openly identifies as a vampire, not in the Hollywood sense, but in the belief, the energy, the identity, and the mythology that has existed for centuries. And tonight, we're going to talk about that. What that means, where that belief comes from, and the ancient ideas about vampires still echoing in modern culture and modern people. History, psychology, the paranormal, identity. Tonight sits right at the intersection of it all. Joining me as always is my co-host, researcher, and fellow traveler into the unknown, and the producer of the show, Raven Knight. Welcome, Rave. How you doing?
I am good. How are you doing?
It's a wonderful intro video you just did, by the way. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we push toward the end of the year and welcome in the next, let's leave tonight feeling a little scared. Please join me in welcoming our guest, tour guide, criminal justice mind, Shaker Cigar Bar insider, Miranda. Welcome, Miranda. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I appreciate
Fantastic.
you guys.
So, with any further ado, let's step into the dark together. Raven.
Yes, I'm excited to be here and I'm excited for our guest tonight. I think this is going to be a really good conversation.
So do I.
I agree.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's actually tell people how we met you. We just talked a lot about Shaker's Cigar Bar, and it was Gabriel and I's second time at Shaker's. We were fortunate enough to meet Bob and kind of start a nice relationship with Bob over there. And he said, you really need to do one of the tours. And he highly recommended us taking the tour that you do over there. So we got the wonderful opportunity to go on the tour with you. And if you could just kind of tell people what that tour is and how you stumbled into Shakers yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wasn't even really looking for Shakers when I found it. I didn't know that they did the tours. Bob, when I first got hired, called it Kismet that I wandered into the establishment. I kind of always had a fascination with Dahmer from a very young age. I would say around 19. He was kind of what facilitated my interest in true crime and psychology and all of that. So I was waitressing and bartending there first. And then I expressed an interest in doing the tour and I ended up doing those. And honestly, those have really done way better than I ever thought possible. I have people coming in from different states for my tours. So, it's kind of become a baby to me. I'm very proud of it.
Well, that's very good.
Well, you
How
did a
did
really
you-
good job when we took it, Raven and I. And I was fascinated actually by how much you knew about Jeffrey Dahmer, to the point where I was a little concerned. Actually, I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of information." No, I mean Netflix. I mean, you could have done a much better job than Netflix did on Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes. Yeah. I tell people all the time, you can kind of start with that tour, not knowing anything about him. You'll leave with a PhD in Dahmer.
Yeah, no, that was very fascinating. And you know the dark
Waiting for
side
my
of
technical-
Milwaukee as well, correct?
A decent amount. I've only lived here the past 2 years, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you entertain us with your knowledge of Jeffrey Dahmer and the darker side of Milwaukee, if you don't mind?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of like we talked about before, I think one of the most fascinating things to me about Dahmer was that his psychology played out in a completely different way from people like Ted Bundy or Ed Kemper, because he did not have psychopathy. They did test him for like ASPD, which he did not meet the criteria to be diagnosed with. However, he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and also schizotypal. So with the borderline, again, not a happy guy. He definitely had some abandonment issues, suicidal ideation, things like that. The schizotypal would have meant his reality was very disjuncted, not like yours or mine at all. He had very magical thinking, beliefs that were not tied to reality in any sort of way. I would definitely classify it as psychosis. And those two things just kind of created the perfect storm to create what he ended up becoming, and with Jeffrey, we see this long, I think, road of abandonment. And personally, I wonder all the time. I think he's one of those ones, had a therapist got to him in his early life, it maybe could have been avoided. He's one that I don't think had to turn out that way. But, his mother and father, Lionel and Joyce, not a happy couple. Joyce, his mother, had some issues herself. She was hooked on barbiturates, struggling with depression, alcoholism. She had tried to unalive herself multiple times. So, Jeffrey was around that as a young kid. And she also had postpartum depression pretty severely after giving birth to Jeffrey. And Lionel said she was never the same after that. So they bumped heads. They argued very violently. really too wrapped up in each other to be concerned with Jeffrey. And then you see as he kind of gets older and he's going into high school, you know, he has that desire for friendship, which really isn't being reciprocated because of these dark thoughts he's already got going on inside of his mind, right? You can't really verbalize that to anyone. He himself said, you know, from a certain point, all of his thoughts were unshareable. So, of course, he couldn't make friends either. I don't know if you guys have seen the My Friend Dahmer
I have.
movie. All right. It's somewhat accurate. There's also a comic that's based off of by one of his high school friends. I'm blanking his first name, but Backdorf is his last name. And he goes through the whole like doing a Dahmer thing where they started a Dahmer fan club, where basically they would pay him to act in crazy ways, which of course they all thought were very funny. He would make a fool out of himself. I don't think it takes an intelligent person very long, though, to figure out that you're not laughing with me, you're laughing at me. So that created another level of that rejection and ostracism, I think, in him. So again, it's just a very lonely person. I've heard a lot of people say Jeffrey Dahmer was the loneliest person they had ever met. And you see that again throughout his dating life because he had some paraphilias that were not necessarily great, you know, necrophilia being one of them. So he didn't like his victims to be conscious when he was doing certain things with them. So he was drugging them and stuff like that. I don't think he was capable of like a normal, healthy relationship at all. And again, he himself said actually in one of his interviews, he didn't feel like he could feel love. Not with the things that he had done. I kind of take arms against that. I think this is a story of somebody who, at one point, that's kind of all he ever wanted was for someone to see him and love him and all of that. And it's just again this long, drawn out process of loneliness, I guess. So it's quite devastating, you know, in its own way. Of course, the entire situation is devastating. I talk about this all the time, you know, when people suffer, it just brings more suffering, you know. So really unfortunate. But I think as people get to know more about psychology and mental health awareness and stuff like that, hopefully things like that can be avoided in the future.
Right. I was going to say, like, in the Netflix show, which wasn't all accurate either, but like in the Netflix show for sure, they did paint Dahmer in that picture of like, you actually did end up feeling really bad for him because you did get that feeling that his parents kind of did abandon him. And I was in the same boat as you, thinking like Dahmer could have been saved, perhaps, like if they would have gotten to him, if therapy, I don't know, some sort of antidepressant pills, whatever it was that he might have needed.
Right.
But
yeah,
So
I mean, it was
a
completely different time, you know. Some of the thoughts that he was having, I think even like, you know, again, and everybody knows this, but back then it's not like you had the internet to even check out if anybody else had those similar thoughts. So the amount of isolation that must have created within his own mind with thinking like, you know, that would lead later to his identification with like evil. And like, well, I must be evil because the only characters he saw reflecting personality traits or, you know, fantasies were these evil characters like in The Exorcist 3 or, you know, Star Wars. So
Exorcist 3 and Star Wars. You don't hear people put those two together. That's awesome.
yeah.
So other than Jeffrey Dahmer, and you have a wealth of knowledge. Well, let's stay on Jeffrey Dahmer for a second. What is the most disturbing fact? And then on the reverse side, what is the most saddest fact that you know about Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yeah. I mean, I think the most disturbing fact is the state of his apartment when they originally arrested him. I mean, that last year he killed like 9 men. So it went from kind of being a scarcity because between his first and second victim, there was actually a 9-year gap between the two. Jeff was really walking the straight and narrow. He did not want to be a homosexual man. So he started going to church with his grandmother, Catherine, and I guess trying to like pray the gay away in a certain kind of way. And then he was in a library one day. Jeff loved going to the malls and the libraries and stuff like that. And a man passed him a note that was offering some X-rated activity in the bathroom. And he commented that he thought that was like a really not a great attempt to get him to, you know, sway. But at the same time, I think that planted the seed all over again. And then he unalived Stephen Tuomi in the Ambassador Hotel. At that point, he completely gave himself over to this idea that he just must be evil to the root of himself. And he committed himself to that. Yeah, and then he just started unaliving people quite a lot, to the extent that there's so much information out there. But Vernal Bass, his neighbor, that last 6 months, said that that's really when the apartment started smelling. He said he would go out into the hallway and there was just like this thick fog in the hallway, kind of like a cemetery, if you've seen the depictions of that, where it's like the fog rolling in, but that was in the hallway. That's how thick the smell was in that apartment. You could see it.
So
Yeah.
did Jeffrey Dahmer not smell that, or did he become immune to it? Why did he not try to cover up that smell?
Yeah, I would say that he probably became a bit desensitized. Yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer for that. It's got to be a terrible smell. But of course, he always had excuses for why it smelled bad. He would blame his fish aquarium or meat that had went bad in the freezer, stuff like that. Yeah, and I think as far as like what did you ask? The purist thing or whatever?
What is the saddest?
The saddest thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the saddest thing for me is his relationship with his father. You see Lionel become really prevalent, especially there at the end, and he's consistently recounting all of the ways that he kind of failed Jeff. He very much blames himself. In fact, there's a great book called The Father Story that Lionel Dahmer wrote. Just talking about, all of these signs he felt he had missed with Jeff growing up. But one of the stories in that, Lionel recounts that he was coming home one day from work, assumably, and Jeff was out near this big tree in the yard, and I guess it had been raining a lot. So it was very muddy and whatnot, and Jeff was stuck in this mud, and he was panicking and crying, and he wanted Lionel to come help him get unstuck from this mud. And Lionel talks about how he felt that they were just perpetually in that state, where throughout Jeffrey's entire life, he was sinking into this state that he just couldn't get him out of. And I think that again, is like, it's very sad. So
That is very sad.
yeah.
Well, other than the paranormal, Miranda, or other than Jeffrey Dahmer, what experiences do you have with the paranormal? Working at a haunted location. Is this the first haunted location you ever worked at?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Yes. I mean, so Raven and I had the privilege investigating the penthouses and the penthouses, the third and second floor.
Okay.
Have you had any your own personal experiences in Shaker's Cigar Bar?
Yeah, so I have a not so exciting and slightly more exciting answer to that. Yeah. In Shakers itself, I haven't experienced a whole lot. When I originally was looking at doing the ghost tours, Bob was like, oh, well, if you're going to do ghost tours, you have to have some experiences, right? So he set me up for the whole thing. And, we have rods. I don't know if you've done any of that where we communicate with the spirits on our 2.0. And the spirits were not wanting to communicate with me. They will tell me that they are there, and then they refuse to say anything else to me, which I try very hard not to take personally. So Bob actually has a belief that I am haunted already myself, and that there's sort of like this possessive spirit around me. One of my managers called it like a toxic boyfriend type that kind of bullies all of the other spirits there at Shakers and refuses to let them talk to me. Which I find fascinating. We did a whole session when I first started working that kind of reconfirmed that belief that Bob had. I have had way more experiences here in my own apartment, actually, where I've had things move around. In fact, I think the one that I talk about the most, I had one of those large box fans, like the ones you can get from Walmart. They're just cheap, giant fans. But I had it next to my bed every single night on, listening to white noise. And halfway through the month, I woke up one night, don't know why, 3:00 in the morning, that fan was all the way across my apartment. Now, at this time, I didn't have any animals. I live by myself. I don't sleepwalk that I know of at all. So I got up because of who I am. I grabbed the fan. I moved it back. I was like, you don't pay rent here. Don't touch my stuff. And I went back to bed, not really being serious about that at all. And I woke up an hour later, and the fan was back across my apartment. So I was checking to see if I had drop ceilings, because you hear about people, homeless people getting up the ceiling. Yeah. I was looking for a logical reason, right? never happened again after that either.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
With
With
your fascination in the psychology, and then when you look at the paranormal, how do you coincide with your psychology brain? Because you were truly fascinating when it came to how you would explain how the mind works when we had the tour with you, and then talking about the paranormal, which is something that you just can't prove. How do you justify that with the two sides of your mind?
yeah. Well, I would say that I'm an incredibly healthy skeptic. I'm kind of a person that will always be like, oh, it was the wind. Like it had to
Right.
be something, logical. But I will say, kind of going back to Shakers, as much as I haven't had like ghostly activity there, I have had quite a few people come up to me and say very strange things. Which has kind of forced me to look at it, even though I still would say that I'm a skeptic. But for one example, I was not on a tour, had not booked this time. And so I was like up sitting in the window. We don't wear outfits. You don't know that I work there. And I have a woman come up to me and she grabs my hand and she's like, he says that you're doing a great job on the tours. He loves you. And then does the sign of the cross and walks out, which
what?
thoroughly freaked me out. And then I had another experience where I was on one of the ghost tours, and this tall kid was talking about how he was psychic. He had like psychic abilities and whatnot. And I was kind of talking about this haunting, if you will, that Bob believes I may be experiencing. And this kid was like, oh, well, that's funny because I've been seeing like a really tall shadow follow you this entire tour, um, which is fascinating to me. I would love to go see a psychic to kind of see what's going on because it goes against everything that I kind of believe. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Do you feel that you're not alone? Do you feel that there's a presence before anybody introduced that kind of thinking to you?
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that you were attached at some point?
Yeah. I mean, I've had kind of weird experiences all throughout my life. One that I can remember is because so before I went to school for criminal justice, I was actually going to school for opera. So I was doing like music lessons and stuff in the church, and I have one video where it's very strange because the entire video stops except for me, like nothing moves except for me. That was very strange to me as well. I've caught orbs, lots of orbs. In my videos, I have one time that well, it's embarrassing to admit, but I was singing in the bathtub and I was recording it. And when I was listening back to it, you hear a really deep voice say, "Sing it again." And I was home alone.
Hmm,
So I immediately wrapped myself in a towel and I went and sat in the hallway waiting for my mom to get home because it thoroughly freaked me out.
absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of used to it by now. Like weird things happening.
Yeah. Do
Do
you
you
know
mind
who
if
it would
I ask?
be?
Oh, go ahead, Raven. Sorry about that.
I was gonna say, like, would you have any idea of who this presence might be that would be following
Yeah,
you?
I have no idea. I did lots of weird things when I was a kid. Like when I was younger, I've been interested in the occult for a very long time. So we lived in a haunted house when I was younger. There was this attic that this guy's this man's wife was up there, and she was terminally ill. And that attic caught fire. She was bedridden, so that
Oh,
did not turn out too great.
Yeah.
And we moved into this house after all of that happened. I do believe that that was haunted because we got quite a few photos with weird things in them, and you would hear like a woman walking across the floorboards up in that attic. Um, I kind of forgot where I was going with this, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I've had lots of weird stuff going on all of the time. I don't really know who it would be. That's where I was going. But yeah, so my mother was like always very much against Ouija boards and stuff like that. But because I'm a little rebel, I would like take cardboard boxes and make them anyways. She was always very mad. But yeah, I don't know. I was never afraid of that stuff. So I was on there like trying to sell my soul. And sometimes I wonder if something didn't attach itself to me back then.
right.
Yeah.
So you actually created your own Ouija boards, is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And in the process of using Ouija board, I've never used one. I've stayed away from for just reasons of my past. Um, did the thing move by itself? I mean, was there attachments there as you're doing the Ouija board?
Yeah, see, I would love for something to happen with a Ouija board. I try all the time. Even to this day, it's never moved for me. I have gotten some interesting EVPs. I think EVPs might be the way to go.
Mhm.
But you know, then there's like, well, did that actually happen or was it a coincidence? And again, I think my logic brain definitely goes against me in some of these things.
Do you mind if I ask, have you ever had a near-death experience?
I have, yeah. So when I was 14 years old, I was hospitalized with anorexia.
Mhm.
And so that was the whole thing. I was heavy as a kid, um, mercilessly bullied. So I lost a bunch of weight, and by the end of it, I was 79 pounds. I don't think even at that time that I had really thought about the fact that that could have ended in my own demise. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was hospitalized, did the whole rehab thing, but they had people in my room all the time because my heart rate was like 35. It would drop to the point where it could have stopped at any minute. So yeah.
Wow.
The reason why I ask it, and we're very thankful, of course, because just as brilliant that you are, that you made it through all that. It's been our experience. When I say our, I mean Raven Knight and I, that people that have had near-death experiences, they were close to that threshold. That things do seem to, the more and more that we talk to people and interview people, it does seem like people attach themselves. I've had three near-death experiences, and I have no doubt that I have an attachment because of that. And I wonder if maybe that's some of the stuff that you're dealing with. The reason being is because I think when we're around stuff like that, when things like that happen, it kind of opens a doorway, if you will, the thinning the veil. If you've ever heard of that phrase, um,
Yeah.
and it's just the more and more people I talk to that seem to have an attachment, or at least an idea that they might, always seem to have a history that had an element of near death. What do you think of that there? You being as intelligent that you are.
No, I could definitely see that. Yeah, for sure. Because honestly, I think that all of that kind of started around the time that that was all going on.
Mhm.
So no, I mean, I fully believe that that's possible. If ghosts do exist and all of that, which I would like to see like a full body specter. I think that would get me to believe it. Yeah.
Do you think you'd be afraid of it? Do you? I mean, when something like that happens, do you think that that would end your curiosity in the paranormal, or do you think it would only fuel it more?
Yeah, I think it would exacerbate it.
Really?
Yeah. When I was younger, I used to watch like Zach Baggins and everything, and like I was
Yeah.
I was set on becoming a paranormal investigator, and then I
Right.
realized that I could make money doing it. But I think if I full heartedly could convince myself, yeah, I think I would just go head first into all things occult.
Um. Well, on
We
that,
laughed at it is hard making money and yeah.
yeah. On that,
No one's money.
with the history of places that you've been, do you think that trying to figure out more about the paranormal is kind of a gateway? Like Jeffrey Dahmer, was he interested in the paranormal, or was his interest just kind of in death?
Yeah, no, he definitely had an interest in the paranormal and specifically the occult. So that altar that I believe we talked about a little bit earlier, he was kind of constructing, and you can look up photos of this as well. He had this whole plan. He was going to have this long black table in his apartment. He wanted to set all of these men's remains up on top of it, two fully grown skeletons on either side. And his belief was that he could draw power from that altar and that shrine. Again, that's kind of where you get that magical thinking coming in. It kind of reminds me, honestly, of something the Zodiac killer talked about in his letters. He believed that after his death, that all of the people he had unalived would then be slaves to him in the afterlife. So yeah, I think with quite a few of them, honestly, there is this kind of like very spiritual, occult vibe to it.
Yeah.
Other than the research that you have because of your employment, have you ever been intimately involved in the cult? Have you ever been joined in anything like that? Do you have any friends that are in the cult? That kind of thing?
Not too much. You know, like I said, when I was a little bit younger, it was something that was definitely more prevalent for me. I moved to New Orleans, in part for that, but yeah, I never really got into like a coven or anything like that. It has been an interest of mine for a long time, but yeah, I guess there was just never a door for me to properly explore that.
Do you mind I asking, what is the interest in the occult for you? Is it
Yeah.
just psychological understanding, or is it deeper than that?
Yeah, I think it's logical. It's an interest for sure. I think if we could prove that there is an afterlife, I think that that's like the biggest thing that somebody could prove. Like how many people that would put at ease to know exactly what happens after we die. So I think for me, that's been the driving force. Is I'm very interested in death myself and kind of like what happens after the lights go out, you know, or if they do. I kind of have a personal belief that the human soul is in the brain. This kind of goes off on a tangent of my own theories, but I think that that light that kind of connects all of your neural pathways and whatnot that you see light up, I believe that that is the human soul, you know, and we know that energy can be created but not destroyed. So there's a little, you know, scientific leeway there for, well, it must go somewhere. Yeah, and it fascinates me.
I want to touch on a little bit of, you know, because we were talking about fascination. Gabriel said fascination in the occult, which leads me to a question that I was thinking about with the true crime aspect of it, because I've also been very interested in true crime my entire life. When we talked, Miranda, before we even went on here, and you're talking about how sometimes people are a little weirded out about your knowledge of serial killers, I'm right there with you. I've been given so many dirty looks in bars just because of my knowledge of Ted Bundy. But all that to be said, why do you think there is such a fascination with people like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or serial killers?
Yeah. I mean, I think outside of just the like the sort of like car crash theory or train wreck theory where it's like it's a nightmare you can't look away. I think that's definitely for a large amount of people. I think also like most of the people who take my tours are women.
Mhm.
And I think that there's kind of a duality to that as well. I think some people take it because it's good to know what's out there so you can better prepare yourself. You know, which all the power to you. But there's also a lot of women who have crushes on some of these men. Yeah, and that's a whole can of worms itself. You know, Jordan Peterson kind of talked about this in one of his spiels. I cannot recall what video it was, but he talks about how, you know, the ultimate fantasy for women is to like a tameable beast, right?
I can
The
totally see
idea
that.
that, yeah, this man could be in the depths of, you know, the deepest despair, and that somehow your love will save him. And it's kind of like an ego trip, right? You see, talking about Ted Bundy, like when he was on trial, there were all of these girls like outside the courtroom playing with their hair, talking about, you know, he was just so attractive. I can't imagine he would do something like that. And it's like, but he would kill you. Like some beasts are not tameable. You know, it's an unhealthy kind of thinking, but
Yeah.
Where does that come from when it comes to women? I do serial killers that are women, and we there are serial killers that are women. Do
Mhm.
men flock like that as well, or is it just seems to be women?
it just seems to be women.
Eileen,
Yeah,
Eileen wasn't a very attractive one to be fair.
yeah, I think that comes back to like some sort of basal instinct in women that like you want a strong protector, right? And who's going to protect you better than like I talk about Belle and the Beast a lot, right? Like he's the strongest thing, he's the scariest thing, and he'll set the world on fire to save her. And I think ultimately that is the female fantasy, and it goes back to the idea that like you want a man that's going to be able to protect you and keep you safe, right? So I guess the strongest man, the most capable, scariest man in the room, like if he's got a soft spot for you, is somehow romantic. That would be my guess.
Yeah. No, thank you. I don't think men want a serial killer because waking up dead doesn't seem like a very good idea. You know?
Yeah, yeah, I second that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The
When you
logic
blink,
I
wake
think
up.
is more on the men's side on this of not
yeah,
engaging in serial killers. You know,
yeah. Well, to be
typically.
fair, I think there are still a lot of women that fully agree with you. But yeah, I
Well,
have girls
sure.
come through with like Dahmer tattoos. Um, yeah,
Why
yeah. One
why
came
why
through.
would you do that?
Yeah,
You
she
know,
had spent like $1,000 getting this giant, I don't know if it was a poster or a painting up on her wall, and her boyfriend seemed very upset that he was having to now look at this every morning. But yeah, they're
wow,
out there.
Yeah, yeah,
wow. Okay,
that's wonderful.
no,
So, do
thank you.
you mind if I ask you about vampires?
Yeah,
One of my,
absolutely.
I've been dying to ask you about your knowledge of vampires. Not in, Dracula, he lives in a castle or, things like that, but the psychology um, of people that seem to be drawn to that kind of lore or mystique, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different reasons that somebody might be interested in the vampire community. Like I said, I have not been into it for quite a while, so I would never claim to be the spokesperson or anything like that. There are sources I can kind of guide you to for that. But there are people who consider themselves real living vampires, and then there are the lifestylers. So lifestylers kind of just dress the part. They're people who really like things like Interview with the Vampire, Dracula, if you will, and so they really enjoy kind of wearing the clothing and taking on the vibe, and they get the prosthetic fangs and everything, which is a lot of fun. It's just kind of a way to express yourself, I think, like any other kind of fashion sense. And then the living vampires, they're a little bit more spiritual. That's kind of based on pranic energy. Like I said, I kind of see it as something akin to witchcraft. It is very occult oriented and stuff like that. There's different kinds of living vampires. Some consider themselves sanguinarian vampires. I think those are the most controversial, but that's also the first thing that most people think of when they hear the word vampire. Those people do choose to get that energy, if you will, through drawing blood from people and ingesting it. And that's not through like the Vampire Diaries style, like neck bite that you see. Like, it is very graphic. That's more of like taking a lance and cutting the back of your shoulder and maybe getting like a little hickey or whatnot. So there's definitely a sexual attribute to it as well. And then there are people who consider themselves psychic vampires. And those people more use like visualization techniques to kind of draw energy from people. It's more transmitted like through the air. Um, People who are in the community have done things like that, and the person that they're doing it to has passed out. So there's like a physical response. It's very interesting. Of course, I think most of the vampire community would say consent is very important there if you're going to be doing that to someone. Um,
As a disclaimer, that definitely get permission on anything. Just
yes,
as a disclaimer.
absolutely,
Just
absolutely.
saying.
Yeah, but we're seeing it become more of a hot topic. It's kind of taking off. People like the vampire Jack Townsend. He's got a TikTok, a YouTube, and he promotes all of his vampire stuff. I would say he's definitely more knowledgeable. Michelle Bollinger is kind of how I stumbled onto it when I was a teenager on the internet. She goes way more into all of the different like origins and stuff. The vampire community really took off because of the game Vampire the Masquerade. Um, so there's a
See,
whole lore
I've
there
never
that,
heard of this stuff. And
yeah.
I love the
No,
paranormal. No, have
what?
you, Raven?
Yeah,
What?
I've
Where have I
also even
been?
walked down the same street as they did an Interview with a Vampire. Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and I were all on the same street together at one point. I mean, they were before me, but it's fine. In New Orleans. You're
That's
like,
very,
your face.
yeah. And a lot of these cities,
The Anne Rice Museum. I've been there. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. No, I was going to say, a lot of these cities, there are like vampire balls that are held where everybody kind of comes together. And of course, it doesn't really matter if you're a lifestyler or a real vampire, however you choose to identify, but they're a lot of fun too. I have not been to one. I would love to go at some point. I know Logan South does one out of Austin. He's another really great person to go check out his videos. So there's the Sabretooth Clan, I believe, out in New York. And he actually runs like a prosthetic thing. So it's a lot of fun.
The Sabretooth clan, did you say?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I think it'd be fascinating to go to a ball like that.
Check things out.
I personally would not be consenting to any kind of blood lending.
That's
But
fair.
I think it'd be very interesting to see at least the psychology behind what makes people drawn to that. I think that'd be fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of people who are kind of more into alternative living. People who probably in the fringe, on the fringe a little bit, anyways. But I think it gives people a sense of community, and also, spiritualism is. Again, I don't really see it that different as from like witchcraft or something like that. So, yeah.
What are some of the other things that you would say are believed in these kinds of groups? Like, besides, like, we think of vampires, we're thinking of like bloodletting, like you're saying, or like energy, of course. But are there some other things that go with that?
Yeah, I mean, people who consider themselves real vampires typically believe that they have like some sort of spiritual leaking of their own pranic energy. So that's the whole need to restore it by taking it from other people. Again, through any of the various methods, they believe that they have like an energy deficiency.
Hmm.
Interesting.
It's very fascinating. Very
Mhm.
fascinating. What other aspects of the paranormal that are you drawn to or do you know about? Have you ever had anything with demonology?
I haven't. I would love to. I'm a little bit into like Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible and stuff like that. I can't tell you that I've read it, but I do own a copy. Stuff like that fascinates me. I would love to make it out to Salem one of these days. Yeah, I mean,
Did you say that you own a copy of the Satanic Bible?
I do. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
do you? But you've
yeah.
never read it.
I haven't read it yet. Yeah, I haven't gotten around to it.
Okay. Are you into? You said you're into witchcraft. Have you ever done any potions, or is it just something that fascinates you when it comes to the psychology of it?
I would say it fascinates me. I think that it's kind of more of like a placebo effect, if you will. But I
Mhm.
don't think that that necessarily makes it any less magical. So I think, as far as manifesting goes, if you create something to happen, whether it's placebo or because you mixed, some food coloring and some rice with some quarters, like I think either way, if it has the effect you want, it gives you a little bit more control over your life. And I think that that's nice too, because then it helps a lot of people who maybe feel helpless in certain situations feel like they do have a little bit more control.
That's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to cryptozoology, since you do the haunted tours, is it just on the criminal element, or do you do tours as well when it comes to the paranormal?
So it's mainly the Jeffrey Dahmer tours at this
Okay.
moment. Yeah, I was doing the ghost tours a lot, but I think, there's other tour guides that succeed there in ways that I can't because I don't believe in ghosts, But yeah, the Dahmer tour for me, like I said, has just really taken off to an extent that I personally couldn't be happier with.
So I'm not going to ask you who your favorite serial killer is, but who
Mhm.
do you think it was the best at being a serial killer, and what about that person do you think made him excel in that field, if we can call
Yeah.
it a field?
Well,
Wow, Gabriel.
I know. I don't know.
yeah. Well, Ed Kemper called it a vocation, so you're not off.
Okay. Okay.
I would say the Zodiac Killer. If we're looking at the big ones, especially. I mean, he never got caught. So
Why do you think he never got caught? What is it about his style? Do you think he was just elevated intelligence, or do you think it was luck?
you know what? I can't really say. I think part of it is always luck. Another thing is like, being out of California, that you've got so many people. I don't know if it's harder to get away with it in a smaller town or a bigger town. But of course, with any of these killers, it's like, um, I think not having cameras and like phones and stuff like that, it was so much easier to get away with it before modern day technology came into the picture.
Do
I
you
was gonna say
think that Jeffrey
100%.
Dahmer wanted to get caught eventually? I mean, I'm assuming with his background, with religious side of it, there had to been an element, I think, that he knew it was wrong. And I'm not talking about the homosexuality. I'm thinking about the unaliving people aspect of it. Do you think there's an element that gave him a little relief when he was caught?
Oh, I think for sure. I mean, Jeff was very adamant that had he not been arrested, he was planning on doing what he was doing for the rest of his life. He had this compulsion, and as much havoc as it really did create, it was also, I think, destroying him from the inside out. And I talk about the state of his apartment there at the end. He had to know at some point he was going to get caught. He again killing 9 people that last year. Just really, there's no way you can keep up that kind of speed and not get caught.
Well, he was a
What?
little sloppy with it,
Yeah.
to be honest. Like it seems
Yeah.
like with the state of the apartment, the fact that 2 of them at least escaped. Like there's a little bit of a sloppiness to that. And honestly, when we think of serial killers and how meticulous they are about a lot of things, that almost seems like he just didn't. Not that he didn't care, but he didn't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jeff was always incredibly intoxicated when he would commit his crimes. So, I think that kind of goes into why they were so sloppy as well. But he couldn't really do it sober. It was always something he had kind of a ritual of sorts. He would get incredibly drunk, intoxicated, and he would watch these films, like we briefly mentioned, The Exorcist 3, and it would put Jeffrey in a state of mind. It would almost compel him to do these things. Like he needed to watch it to get ready to commit the crimes. Tracy Edwards, the man who escapes his apartment there at the very end, he actually testifies talking about this whole encounter with Jeff, and said, as soon as they got into the bedroom, he was very focused on watching the TV, which of course was already playing this movie, and that he was almost like whispering some sort of incantation, humming it to himself, and he was rocking back and forth. So it's like he would have to almost convince himself sometimes. Obviously, he knew he was going to do it. I would say he was fairly confident with unaliving people. But he would have to get himself in quite the state to actually do it.
What was it in your research about The Exorcist 3 that got him into that state of mind? Was there anything, what was the trigger? I guess was what I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why The Exorcist 3 of all of the horror films. Jeffrey was a Gemini, as if we're talking about astrology and the occult. So there is a murderer in that movie called The Gemini Killer. And so I don't know if he connected in some kind of way with that character, but Tracy did say that it was almost like he was trying to become that character in some sort of weird way. So I do think that he really resonated with whatever. I don't know if there was, a line that really resonated with him or just something about the character. But I will say that the Gemini Killer had like bright yellow eyes, which is something that is shared in The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, right? The Emperor has bright yellow eyes, and Jeffrey even then proceeded to go out and get yellow eye contacts that he would wear, and that would help put him in this state of mind as well. So,
Is there like a common misconception that you think that people have about Jeffrey Dahmer that in your research you've kind of discovered was not true?
yeah. There's so many different variations of Jeff that kind of goes around. I think he was a very multifaceted person, and definitely people saw different sides of that depending on when they were around him. So I can't say that any particular variation is correct or incorrect. I will say that there's a lot of people that like kind of make jokes about it and whatnot, or like the idea that you should get tattoos because Jeffrey said that they tasted bad or something like that. And I always hate those, but yeah, no, I think the depictions of his personality are decently accurate.
What
Okay.
is it? Do you what point do you think it was in his childhood that led him to the fascination with unaliving? Was it the chicken or the chicks? With the movie, they kind of played out, or at least they paid attention to when he was a child, unaliving the baby chicks. Do you think
Mhm.
that was the element, or was there something else that kind of drew him to unaliving?
Yeah, I mean, I think a morbid fascination really started all of this, right? So we talk about that a little bit with like the fiddlesticks, right?
Yeah.
The bones left from these deceased animals. Jeffrey really liked the sound that they would make when they hit each other, and he would call them his fiddlesticks. It brought him a lot of joy. Around this time, he'd also had a double hernia operation. So I went to some sort of true crime thing down here, and they were talking about how they really believed that it's possible because of that radiating sensation around his groin area that maybe didn't mingle with that fascination of the fiddlesticks and cross some wires up there, which I personally find very fascinating as a theory. But Jeff also was very open about how his first like sexual desires stemmed from actually cutting open animals. So he found himself really attracted to the viscera and the organs, that kind of element. And very quickly after that, he started having like necrophilic desires, right? Like this jogger that was jogging around Bath, Ohio, he would watch him, and his immediate fantasy was that he wanted to knock him out and, do things with him unconscious.
Was it killing somebody or just having that person unconscious when he's doing the fantasies, or was it the actual unliving?
Yeah, I think it was the fact that they were unconscious. Because he said if they hadn't tried to leave, he wouldn't have killed them or unalived them. So yeah, he was. I think it really was just, he was abandoned by his parents. Had this feeling of abandonment and loneliness with his friends, if you want to call them that. I don't usually. But and then you have this desire to not be left again, and I think that really was the driving force. Yeah, I don't think that it was so much that he wanted them unalived. You kind of see that even with the zombification process. Like he was trying to keep them alive, but there.
So,
Yeah.
with your vast knowledge and fascination, if I can even call it fascination, and I don't mean that in a negative way, and
Yeah.
if Dahmer was still alive, and you had the chance to ask direct questions or interview him, what questions would you ask him?
That's a great question. Um, Man, I mean, I feel like I kind of know what he would say in some of these. I think everyone's burning question is there any kind of path that it would be fascinating to know if he thought there was any sort of intervention that could have prevented something like this, and at what point he would have thought that needed to take place. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's such a heavy question that I really haven't thought about, but I certainly will now. Yeah.
With your psychological degrees, not degrees, but your studies, if you will, um, if somebody behaves in such a way, is there even a path back? I mean, for
Mm.
you to be able to enjoy some segments of elements, at least that he enjoyed psychologically, is there even a path back? I don't see one. I think broken is broken, and sometimes you just can't fix broken. What do you think?
I think it really depends on the issues of the individual. Like somebody like Ted Bundy, I don't think so. Even people like Ed Kemper who unalived his grandparents at a very, very young age. But with Jeff, you see this again this like long drawn out process of not wanting it to become what it became. I mean, he actively fought these compulsions and these fantasies that he had for a number of years before it immediately caught him. So I think for him, there could have been a way back, especially if there had been intervention really early. I think too, like if he had had friends that maybe enjoyed some of the things that he had enjoyed without ostracizing him for it. Um, you know, like enjoyed the taxidermy aspects without just thinking that he was a freak or weird. I think that maybe would have went a decent ways. I think this was just a case of it being the perfect storm. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a person to person basis. I think some of them could be saved. I think some of them probably not, unfortunately. And there's not enough research that goes into things like ASPD and like psychopathic tendencies or the desire to unalive people. We don't delegate enough resources to that, in my opinion.
Do you believe that there are currently serial killers that we don't know about?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think it's estimated that like 50 are active at any given time across the US.
50?
Wow.
50. And
Oh,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's more, to be honest. I mean, you see these boards of missing people, and most of them are probably not
Mhm.
missing, unfortunately. Yeah.
right. When I see those
Like the
boards,
Smiley Face
and of
Killer.
course, our heart goes out to missing people, but my assumption is always sex trafficking because, that's an industry. And killing people, I suppose, could be an industry as well.
Mhm.
Um, what portion of do you think that is a industry like human trafficking and versus actual death,
Yeah.
unaliving for TikTok reasons?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the world is just such a bad place, isn't it? Like there's so many different things that can get you. I would say I agree with you. A lot of it is probably human trafficking, unfortunately. But yeah, I would say that if I had to guess, I would say like 25% maybe would be serial unalivers.
No,
Mm.
that's a pretty
So
large amount. I was expecting something a little bit smaller. But even
yeah,
with all the bad in the world, I do think still um, good will always outweigh. As many people, what they say, like 5 people a day or something you walk through, pass is a serial
yeah,
killer. Um, there's still all the other people you walk by that are not. So with all the negativity in the world, I think people bring what they sow. If you
hmm
if you look for that element, you'll get it. Raven and I had we're in the paranormal field, right? So one could say in the paranormal field, you attract that kind of atmosphere. I think that'd be a very fair assessment. But I think for at least us, and forgive me for speaking for you, Raven, the people that we've encountered, like chumming with the spirits and the young lady we just had on from Uper's Paranormal, and other elements that we have talked to, I found that we find more positive in the paranormal field than we do the negative.
yeah. No, I would completely agree with that. I mean, the thing is that there's way more healthy, like right-minded people in the world than there are these, unfortunate cases where people are tortured and go out and do these terrible things. So yeah, I would fully agree with you. The good people outweigh the bad people by quite a lot.
Absolutely. And,
Well, we
excuse me.
I was gonna say, can we, if we think about serial killers and a lot of them that came out of like the 70s or whatever, right? Like
hmm
that's when a lot of that all occurred, and now we've had such a great. It's not as good as it could be, but like breakthroughs and like m- diagnoses, and we kind of have learned like what certain causes of these things are. So like, putting people on medication versus like saying that they're, I mean, we've been able to maybe combat. So even if we do have a good number, I mean, imagine what the number would have been if we have never fixed some of the issues or found what some of the issues were, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I would even take it for a step further, if you wouldn't mind, Miranda. The the tours that we took I thought was fascinating. Do you think a portion, or I'd say a healthy portion of the people that take these tours, isn't just liking the aspect of crazy people, but maybe an education of what to be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we get quite a variety of people on the tours, and I think it's very possible that some people even take the tours because they have an unhealthy fascination. I've had a couple people on there say some pretty disturbing things.
What is the
So,
most disturbing thing you've heard?
so I had one guy that thought that Jeff Dahmer was possessing him. And
Oh,
he kind of like set to relive what Jeffrey had committed.
did you kick him off the tour, or did everybody kind of just like take a step back from him? And they're like, oh,
Yeah, no, I actually had coffee with him
oh,
because I was so fascinated that I was like, you should get coffee with me, and he did. So, yeah, very interesting individual. I would say maybe more unstable than Jeff Dahmer, which is Shocking. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more about that guy here
Well,
in the
if you
coming.
don't mind me
Back on him.
asking, what kind of coffee did he drink so I can stay away from that kind of coffee?
I cannot remember.
You don't
Yeah.
remember? Okay.
It's like
sorry.
black.
Yeah,
Black
probably
coffee.
black coffee. Yeah,
Coffee.
serial killers, right? It's like supposedly gin and tonic and black coffee. So
Black coffee. Yep.
Mhm.
Gin
Well,
and
black
tonic.
coffee without any flavoring is, you know, it is
Yeah,
what
it's
it is.
hardcore. I can't get myself there, but
No, I love
no,
it.
I'm a Starbucks girl through and through.
Captain Coffee, if they would like to sponsor us, I am
Mm.
a big lover of Captain Coffee or Cabin Coffee, and I'd be happy to promote Cabin Coffee.
I'd be
Or
okay with
Starbucks.
promoting Caribou as well.
I find Starbucks has a bitter
All of our
taste.
favorites.
Don't you think? Starbucks is kind of bitter, no?
Man,
Unless
I
they
don't.
want to
I put
sponsor
so
us.
yeah, I
You
put
put
so
so
much
much
wine. It's
stuff in it.
basically a fruit juice.
Right?
Yeah.
I have so much sugar, and my coffee kind of floats. I love it.
Yeah, nothing but sugar. So we know
What
you're
else
not
you
a
got
serial
tonight,
killer.
Raven?
We know you're not a serial killer, Gabriel. We learned this because you don't drink your coffee black. You like all the sugar.
And
Yeah.
I've only had a gin. Bob, when we were at Shaker's, made me a gin old fashioned. I think is what it was. It was really good, actually.
Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, I
All
believe
right.
about this stuff.
Yeah, Bob's a good man. I
That's
really
what
kind of, I
happens
really
with
kind
friends.
of like the stories and talking to him. So, it was a pleasure taking those tours with you. It was a pleasure having you on tonight.
Yeah,
Any closing thoughts at all, Miranda?
I don't think so.
You mean don't kill people, right? I'm assuming that's what you were
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah,
Don't ever
yeah,
kill
yeah.
anybody. It's a bad idea. Seek
Right.
therapy.
But if you
There.
were going to kill people and become a serial killer, you would like to interview them as well. I'm assuming.
Yeah, we could get a coffee sometime.
There you go. I love it. Raven?
Oh, well, I just want to say thank you, Miranda, for popping on tonight.
Of course.
Two of my favorite subjects, and I shouldn't ever admit that, but serial killers and paranormal are two of my favorite things. So, you and I, we could talk for days probably about serial killers. Gabriel's always like, "What?" He's so confused. You would probably start name dropping serial killers. He wouldn't know what we were talking about.
I'm sure.
I really don't. I only know the famous ones. I don't know. Unaliving people just doesn't do it for me. I'd rather stay with the spiritual realm
No,
of
it's
things that you can't see. Versus, I think
more the
actually a
psychology.
human being
It
is
is
more
the psychology.
dangerous than the paranormal world itself.
It is.
Yeah.
Humans
I
are scarier than ghosts.
Hmm.
Yeah,
They are.
absolutely.
But I do want to say though that it's just a fascinating subject, and it's not because of unaliving people, Gabriel. It's not that that's the great thing. It is just the psychology of why certain people end up the way they end up, or how certain people, like we were talking about with Dahmer, like if he would have had help, it could have completely changed the trajectory of what happened. Somebody like Bundy, on the other hand, Bundy definitely loved what he did. He
Yes.
was not a regretful, remorseful person. But,
So after watching the screwed up Netflix version of Again, I can't help but wonder. Broken people seem to always be made by broken people. You know.
Yes.
And the unfortunate is that we are who we become because of the experiences we have. But at the same time, we are able to change that direction. Just because you have a bad thing going on in your path doesn't mean that you'll end up killing people. So that's always refreshing, I think.
Right.
Or doesn't that help at all, Miranda?
No, yeah, it does. No, I
Okay,
fully
good.
agree. Yeah, I think, in these situations, knowledge is power. And like, I think, again, going back to being intrigued by true crime, it's like knowing what the signs are and when you should intervene. I mean, you can't just ignore it, right? Because then the issue is never solved. And I don't know. I have a bleeding heart for maybe people that I shouldn't. I just think minimizing suffering across the board has always been the goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I have to ask one question I like to ask
Mhm.
most guests we're on. And Raven hates it, but so when it comes to the mystical creature that doesn't have anything to do with anything other than being a vessel for people to make money off of.
I've been
Do you
waiting
believe in
12
Bigfoot?
hours.
Do I believe in what?
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, the commercialized Bigfoot that's in every store and doesn't
Yeah,
exist at all anywhere.
I can't say I do. Yeah,
Miranda, you seem like a smart woman for me.
I
And
know.
thank you for doing that. It takes two intelligent people to understand and actually admit the truth. And I believe, I appreciate that. People are not liking that right now, Raven. I'm reading the
No,
comments.
that
They
was
don't
the
like
first.
that.
No, you've been the first guest, Miranda, who said that you do not believe in Bigfoot.
Okay.
All of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody
So,
says
we'll just
it's
on
true.
this
And I
one,
say,
but-
there is no way a hairy monster that smells like musk is
Right.
walking around in the wilderness and doesn't own a cell phone. I just don't believe it. You know?
Yeah, I don't believe it.
I mean,
Yeah.
so what do you do with your time, right? You have to watch something. You're not scrolling. You're just roaming through the countryside, making little hairy babies with another one that doesn't exist. It makes no sense to me, Miranda.
Yeah, no, I think we definitely would have found if there was like a colony of Bigfoots. Yeah.
But serial killers out there absolutely believe it, right? Nothing wrong with serial killers. Stop it, Raven. It's not true.
I tell ya, it's
Well.
fine. You can have this one. I'll let you have this one. However, I'm working on a good guest, so
Listen, Miranda is extremely intelligent, and if she
No,
believes
that's
in the
right.
same thing I do, which there is no Bigfoot, it's got to be real. She hasn't lied to us
Uh-huh.
once.
So I think I have a question here. What
Yeah.
is like the one thing that has made you believe that Bigfoot exists? What has like sold you on it?
Yeah.
oh, well, I just you know what I think though. I 100% like we've talked about. There's the ocean is so deep that we have not explored all the vastness of the ocean, and I still think that the forests are so there are so many places that we have not quite seen or been yet that there's got to be a possibility of something.
So through your answer alone, it seems like you're gambling that there is on hope instead of any one belief. Is that correct?
Same with aliens. I
Well,
believe
aliens
that
100%
aliens-
exist.
Yeah.
One-
It's-
Miranda, aliens. How do you feel?
aliens exist.
I think that it would be naive to say that there was no life on other planets. The universe
God, I
is way
love
too
her.
vast.
I
But
love her.
I will
Miranda,
say
you're
that
always going to be on.
UFOs
Just letting you know.
Okay.
It's the same
No,
with
so-
spirit. Like, You
what do you think
don't-
about mermaids?
Whew. Well, as a young man, mermaids would have been awesome to
Yeah.
find, but I've seen the videos of some of the mermaids, and having a half fish, half human just wouldn't biologically exist.
I'm with you. I was just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a hairy man
No.
running around in the woods. No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you one of these times. It's gonna happen.
listen, two intelligent people can't be wrong, Raven. I'm sorry about that. So
Yes, they can be.
thank you, Raven. Miranda, you were a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much for talking to us. Give us your insight on the vast knowledge of serial killers, which is alarming and also very interesting at the same
Yeah,
time.
anytime.
I love that. So, as we bring tonight to a close, I want to take a moment because conversations like this, they do matter. It's not just about the history. It's not just about the paranormal. But because of the people willing to step into it and to speak honestly about what they've seen, studied, and felt. Miranda, thank you once again for sharing your knowledge and experience and your perspective. Found it very interesting. From Milwaukee's darkest history to the shadows that still linger to the beliefs that shape who we are, we truly appreciate you being here tonight. And Raven Knight, even though you're wrong, and I always thank you for being your insight, your research, and the sturdy presence into the dark with me, even though you are absolutely dead wrong. And I feel
No,
vindicated that Miranda agrees with me. So,
No, I'm fine.
So-
I'm fine. I can live with your whatever you got over there.
until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and most of all, do stay safe out there. Miranda, if you don't mind hanging on for a second, I thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.